Put the gloves on, almighty sister-in-law, or I will snap your arm and send you to the hospital right in front of that little brat daughter of you." Trace threw a pair of fighting gloves at my boots and grinned like he had already won. Behind him his father let out a booming laugh that rolled across the whole backyard. "Teach this pathetic soldier a lesson, son. Show her that in this neighborhood my money is the law." I stood still on the grass and looked at the family that had come to crush my daughter and me in front of everyone we knew. Strangers in uniform once took bullets to protect me. My own blood was now aiming for my throat. They had no idea that cornering someone like me was not a show of power. It was the beginning of the end for everything they owned. Before I tell you what happened next, if this story pulls you in, tap that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling me where you are watching from right now. I spent 10 years in war zones most people only see in movies. Forward bases so deep in hostile territory that supply helicopters would not even land. They would kick the cargo out the back and bank away before ground fire started. I earned my rank one deployment at a time, one close call at a time. I was a security assessor for special operations, trained to read danger before it happened and to end problems quietly. But when I came home to a quiet Virginia neighborhood, I locked all of that away in a fireproof safe under a folded flag. I told everyone, even my own sister, that I was just a paper pusher in a government office. My only mission left was raising my daughter Wren in peace. Every morning I watched Wren through the kitchen window chasing the neighbor cat through the bushes while I drank black coffee from a chipped mug. Old habits never fully left me. I still scanned the fence line, still counted how long it took a car to pass the house, still noticed things I no longer needed to notice. That peace lasted 4 months. Then a convoy of moving trucks rolled down our street at 6 in the morning, followed by a black luxury truck with tinted windows. Duke Lewis had bought the huge estate right beside my modest 3-bedroom home, separated only by a wooden fence I had built with my own hands. Duke was a logistics millionaire who confused owning expensive things with being an important person. His son Trace, 24 years old and 230 pounds of gym muscle, had married my sister Brooke 2 years earlier, trading our family name for a life she could never have built on her own. That marriage was the reason this family had bought the house right next to mine, and it was the reason the deepest betrayal of my life was about to move in through my own back fence. Within an hour of arriving, Trace chained a heavy punching bag directly to the fence line, so every punch shook my kitchen wall. I sipped my coffee and studied him the way I used to study a threat in the field. His stance was wide open. His guard dropped every third punch. He looked dangerous in a mirror, not against someone who had trained to end real threats. Duke drove past my driveway twice that week, slowing down just to stare at my old car and my unpainted porch with a look of pure pity. He wanted me to notice him noticing. I said nothing. I only watched. My sister Brooke showed up that Thursday without calling first, walking through my front door like she owned it. She spent 20 minutes describing the new marble bathroom Duke was funding for her, then looked around at my thrift store curtains and my daughter crayon drawings on the fridge and said, "You know, Harper, you could have so much more if you tried a little harder. That government job is not doing you any favors." I said nothing. I washed the dishes until she got bored and left. Trace did not stop at the fence. He shoved an elderly delivery driver off the sidewalk. He kicked over an old man garden hose just because he could. He made neighborhood kids ride into the street because he decided the sidewalk belonged only to him. One hot July afternoon, my daughter Wren was washing my car in the driveway, humming along to the radio, when Trace stormed over, shirtless and sweating, and ripped the radio knob clean off the dashboard, just to shut off her music. Garbage music, he snapped at an 11-year-old girl, then walked away like nothing happened. Wren froze in place, soap sliding down her arms, too scared to even cry. I was inside the kitchen and I heard the crack. I set my coffee down and walked out slowly, my whole body shifting into a stance I had not needed in years. I stopped close enough to act, far enough to read him. "Trace," I said, my voice completely flat. "You just crossed a line. Do not ever touch my property or threaten my daughter again." He puffed out his chest, 8 inches taller than me and 100 pounds heavier, and sneered that I was just some washed-up woman living off a pathetic paycheck. I let him walk away, I always give a man a door to leave through before I take all the doors away. Weeks later, at a backyard party celebrating a cheap trophy Trace had won by forfeit, he found my daughter and her friend studying at our picnic table and began throwing loud shadow kicks into my lilac bushes just to scare them. My phone buzzed. "Mom, he is scaring us." I walked to the fence and told him to take his circus somewhere else. His ego could not survive being corrected in front of teenage girls. He grabbed my shirt collar and lifted me off the ground, screaming that he could snap my neck right there. What happened next took less than 2 seconds. I turned his own wrist against him, hit the nerve cluster in his forearm, and dropped him straight into the grass without a single visible mark. Then I jumped back, put on a look of shock, and yelled, "Oh my goodness, careful, did you trip on a tree root?" The girls at the table barely looked up before returning to their homework. Trace crawled away holding his arm like a broken wing, his face burning with humiliation. An hour later, Duke pounded on my front door so hard the frame shook. Trace standing behind him cradling his arm, and behind both of them stood my own sister, arms crossed, already on their side before she even asked what happened. Duke screamed threats about lawsuits and taking my house. I told him calmly to check his own security cameras. He was not interested in truth, only in dominance. Then I looked past him straight at Brooke and waited, remembering every childhood moment we had shared, waiting for her to say one word in my defense. She rolled her eyes and said, "Stop causing drama. You are just jealous we are richer than you." Something inside me went cold and quiet. I closed the door in their faces and went back to help Ren with her math homework. On Labor Day, the entire street gathered for the neighborhood barbecue. Duke and Trace marched down the sidewalk with 4 of his gym friends, forcing an elderly woman off the curb just to make room for themselves. Trace threw the gloves at my feet in front of 40 of our neighbors and dared me to fight him right there, calling out to the whole street. My daughter stood at the edge of the lawn, her small hands gripping her shirt, staring at me like I was the only safe thing left in her world. If I backed down now, this family would own every corner of our lives forever. I set down my plate. I looked at Ren and gave her one steady nod. Then I stepped onto the lawn in just a t-shirt and boots and said one rule: when you want to quit, stay flat on the ground. Trace charged with a heavy overhand punch meant to end things instantly. To everyone watching, it looked terrifying. To me, it was slow motion. Every mistake broadcast a full second early. I stepped inside his swing, felt his fist tear past my ear, and redirected all 230 pounds of his own momentum past me. He stumbled and nearly hit the pavement. He came again with a wild spinning kick, the same one from his cheap trophy tournament. And the moment his back turned to me, I hooked his ankle and drove him straight into the ground with a thud that silenced the entire street. I pinned him face down, my forearm across his neck, and whispered close to his ear, "Tap the ground, show your father what losing looks like." 5 long seconds later, his shaking hand hit the dirt 3 times. I stood, brushed off my knee, and the whole fight was over in 90 seconds. Duke charged at me next, screaming, but I planted my feet and said one sentence: "Take one more step, and I will treat you as a direct threat." He froze mid-stride, and instead pulled out his phone, screaming that he would make sure I rotted in prison. Police arrived within minutes. Duke tried to spin the story, calling me an unstable veteran who attacked his son without cause. But an elderly neighbor named Walt stepped forward and told the officers exactly what he saw, and a teenager standing nearby had already recorded the entire thing on his phone. The footage showed everything: the gloves, the challenge, the charge. The officer looked at Duke and told him plainly that if anyone was getting arrested today, it would be his son for assault. Furious and desperate, Duke tried one final move. His company was bidding on a $40 million government contract, and he used his connections to call a Pentagon general directly, demanding I be fired and calling me dangerous and unstable. What he did not know was that I was the lead security officer reviewing his own company file. The general laughed on the phone and told me the whole story, then calmly informed me that Duke had just committed a federal conflict of interest violation by threatening me directly. The $40 million contract was shredded within the hour, along with every future government deal his company could ever hope to win. The video of the fight spread through every local group chat within 2 days. His gym instructor watched it, called an assembly in front of the entire class, and stripped Trace of his belt on the spot, banning him from the dojo forever. Duke investors pulled their funding the same week. His warehouse clients walked away. The bank called in his loans. The empire he had built on arrogance and other people's money collapsed from the inside out, faster than anyone could have imagined. 2 months later, a plain unmarked moving truck sat in their driveway. Duke carried a crooked lamp to the truck. My sister Brooke carried a garment bag, sunglasses pushed up on her head even though the sky was gray, and she never once looked in my direction. Trace sat in the back seat with his hood pulled low, hiding from a street that had already seen everything. The whole neighborhood came out to watch in complete silence, nobody waving, nobody speaking, just quietly witnessing the end of a family that had tried to terrorize a block for one entire summer. I stood on my porch holding a warm cup of coffee as the truck disappeared around the corner. An old neighbor across the street raised his mug toward me in a small silent toast. I did not gloat. I did not smile too wide. I simply turned around, walked back inside, and sat down at the kitchen table where Wren was still working on her homework under the lamp light. I picked up a pencil and helped her find the answer to a fraction problem, and the house was finally completely quiet. If you believe real strength never needs to shout, and that karma always finds the people who mistake cruelty for power, let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next story.